Well, hello everybody, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets. We do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves one question: what happened today? What does it tell us about the coming ones? We do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. You know, that opening monologue really is what it is all about with respect to both trading and investing. I was talking to a subscriber today, an insider, was on Wall Street. Not so much on Wall Street, but he was an insider, worked for Merrill Lynch for many years. And he was, we were trading conversation and talking about, how upside down everything is and how it's such a crock what's sold to most investors from Wall Street in terms of like long-term returns and all that stuff. Folks, it's a probability game. I mean, seriously, nobody knows what the future is. Come on, be realistic. I don't know what the future is. Neoclassical is day by day. If you want to be where you need to be 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, you have to take the clues the market gives you and use those clues to trade it. And when I say trade it, I'm not talking about day trade in and out all the time. I'm talking about direction, right? What's the direction? Which way is it heading? When do you not throw in the towel, but when do you say enough is enough? When do you say risk is too great? When do you say opportunity is much greater than risk? That's what it's about, right? That's where the money is made or lost. It's not, it's not average down. It's not, money's always going to go up, so there's no way you want to sell it, buy and hold. I mean, come on, be realistic. That's not what it's about. That's not what we do. And so when I say, we look at what it told us today and what that might tell us about the coming days, that's exactly what we do. Last night I was talking about we're probably going to get a bounce, right? How did I know that? Well, just look at the charts. And I gave you it wasn't great evidence last night, but there was some evidence that suggested that's probably what we would do. I communicated that to you, told you what I thought. And, we opened down this morning. Looked like, we were down a good, it was almost 0.75% before the market opened. And they end up driving it back higher. Gold was down, dollar was up slightly. Bonds did rally again today. Those are actually taking some of that pressure off. Tomorrow's going to be a big day for them with the Federal Reserve and, them telling us, I assume they're going to tell us September's the day. Now, I don't think they're going to tell you, okay, we're guaranteed to do it in September because, they're quote-unquote data dependent. But, I think they're going to lean more towards that. If they don't, they really are going to have to lean on this issue in Europe with Greece and say that, okay, given the overseas issues, we may or may not move in September. So I don't know what they're going to do. All I know is that that's the way the picture's shaping up. Let's take a look at these markets, look at the indexes and see what we see. Now tonight, last night I was talking about, the way it tested, the way it held, the way the volumes were. We'd probably get a bounce. We get a bounce. What do we got tonight? Well, tonight it's not clear at all. Matter of fact, it's totally unclear. Let's draw in some lines here and I'll show you why I think that. You got an ABCD structure potentially, right? Starting to shape up. Looks something like that, right? Actually, probably about 60 is where it would go. Inside that now, you've actually got another one potentially setting up as well. And that is that this one now has a bounce going and potentially a little bit higher and then a nested ABCD structure. If so, take you down about the right, exact same spot. That's potentially what could be setting up. Bounce, nested ABCD structures to get you down underneath these swing point lows. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's just one particular way this thing could play out. What's the other thing? Well, it could be just range trading, and we could be heading back up to the top of this range. But right now, there's more evidence downside than there is upside. And there's no clue tonight that that's not going to happen. So tonight, it's kind of hands off. I don't know what that tells me other than the fact that it did what I thought it should do, right? You make a thesis, you see if it does what it should. That's confirmation of the thought, and then hopefully that gives you another one. Well, in this particular case, it doesn't give me another one. It simply tells me that that one did what it's supposed to do, which says this market's behaving as I thought it might. You got the same thing here on the NASDAQ. Volume shrinks, goes up. Really not much more to say than that. These are still inside bearish retest regions. I haven't pointed that out yet, but I think you already know that. In other words, we have a bearish retest taking place. It's trying to regenerate lower. We're coming back into it now for the second time. That's true here on the NDX, which is still weaker than the NASDAQ, weaker than the Russell. The Russell is the only one telling us that it's going to try to do something different. And that difference is mixed. I mean, it's not even clean. And so let's go through this one, because this is the only one giving you any kind of signals, but the signals are actually mixed. ABCD structure potentially to get you to this high. That's the first thing you notice. The second thing you notice is you go over the high from like 3 days back, over it, you go back underneath it, and if you look at the volume there versus the volume here, less volume as you go over it back under. Now, that's not a strong signal because there really wasn't any big test there, but it's a minor signal telling you, okay, you get up there, people don't want to pay higher prices, and you trade back down. Now, why wouldn't they pay higher prices? Well, you got the Fed tomorrow, and you still got Greek on the table, so that's, small signal that this thing's going to try to go higher off the ABCD projection, and that high that's sitting out there, which is the breakdown bar, which is acting like a magnet right now. And that's not to say that we don't have some magnets elsewhere. If I go back over here, for example, to the NASDAQ, and I pull over the weekly charts, right, we still have this high volume high hanging out here. It hasn't got tested. So that's also a magnet. And if you look at sentiment indicators, right, and I'm not big on those, but certainly I look at them from the perspective of the charts in terms of internals. The sentiment indicators are fairly negative. I mean, if you look like at the bulls and bears from the various, AAI and some of the others, or AII, there's not strong numbers on the bull side. It's mostly either bear or on the fence. And that's kind of fascinating when you think about you're right at the highs and people are bearish. Of course, they've been bearish all the way up, so I guess that shouldn't be a big surprise, right? Okay, so that's the indexes. Index is not telling us a lot. Let's go over to the world markets because so much of what's happening is over there, not here. If we go to France, France comes down today and tests. So the low, the prior low, June 9th, you had 1.37. Today you do 1.226. You get under it, you get back over it, you have a little less volume. That's a successful test of that low. Again, this one's going to do the same sort of thing we're doing, and that is it's going to try to get back up here and retest again. It has tried to regenerate, has failed to regenerate lower today at least. Going to try to get back up in there and test again. That's a positive. If we go to the DAX, so the DAX doing the same sort of thing, gets under it, back over it, less volume. This also wants to test back into this low one more time. So both of those telling us, hey, that looks pretty positive. Now, if we go over to the Shanghai, Shanghai had traded down and then last night came off again. Volume lighter, but you are back into the two bars. And the two bars I'm talking about are this one and this one here, right? So those are the two bars. You're back into them. You're trying to trade back down at this point. You're trying to trade back down to those lows of those bars. And so there's a little support zone right at the bottom of this that this is trying to trade back to. Why is it doing that? Well, it wants to set up the range. That old range we've talked about that just never could come looks like it's about to. And where are we now? We're right at the edge. Now, this, given the volumes, could get a little bounce tonight and then set up a move on down to this level. But it looks like it's finally, Shanghai's finally trying to do a range trade. The Nikkei. Nikkei already in a range trade. What's that trade? Well, it's off these highs. So you've got this top range. You've got the one up underneath it, right? And now it's going to try eventually probably to do another one underneath that. And that's probably not a clean draw. It'd probably be easier to do it on the weekly. Not that chart. Where's my weekly? Oh, here we go. It's probably easier to look at it here because you've actually got the highs up here. So this is probably a better representation of the range. And project that lower, you can see how that trades. That's the Nikkei. So far it's held the upper range. I suspect at some point it's going to fall back down and test a little bit lower and set up a larger range. And I say that because the volume tells both here on the weekly as well as those that we had back here on the daily. Let's see, where else? Now, I haven't looked at these others, so let's just take a quick look at them. India, still bouncing. So India's still holding that low. I suspect it's still going to break it though. All ordinaries got a little bounce like we thought it would and then didn't do anything. Brazil was just kind of bouncing around, still is, nothing there, although the volume trails look pretty good. London gets under the lows like the rest of Europe. ABCD structure on the downside. Actually has a little bit farther to go if it wants to complete, but it did do a doji. Had more volume than yesterday though. That one looks actually like it's going to try to trade lower. Hong Kong I didn't look at. Let's look at Hong Kong. And let's see here. Not Hang Seng. I grabbed the wrong one. Let me get Hong Kong. Okay, here's that one. So this one's coming back down, trading into that low again. That's still into this gap area. And you know, it can get into the top of this bar. It's trying to fill the gap. It really depends on if we get a bounce out of Shanghai tonight, because so much of this is really riding on whatever happens in Shanghai, just to a lesser extent. My friends up in Toronto, let's see what that one looks like. And that one's still barely hanging on to that low. It still doesn't have... Yeah, this one's probably going to bounce, and then it's going to try to take out the low again. And let me see what's happening in Taiwan. That one's going to try... Actually tested a low and held, so this one finally get a bounce as well. Let me look at the Ox markets, see if there's anything there that's worth noting. I did kind of glance through the sectors already, and I didn't have much there to talk about. Let me see what the emerging markets look like. I haven't looked at that in a while. So this is still testing into this big bar, which is around the 39.20 area, and has no volume as it's coming down. FXE, let's see what the currencies are doing. Still hanging. These are just going sideways until the Fed gets out of the way. And let's see about the yen. Doing the same thing, nothing special there. I saw that the bonds, we talked about that, they bounced today. Let's see if they got above that high. Barely. Okay, so this is still doing the retest, regenerate bearish off of this bar. So until you get above that, right, this thing still can generate lower. So tomorrow's a big day probably. Silver and gold both down today. Both came off the lows. That one doesn't look too bad. Let me look at the gold market. And the one thing I was noticing is that the gold stocks just cannot get out of their own way. So that one they both look the same here. So it's trying to hold the lows, and gold stocks just keep coming down. So it gets under this low and stays under today. That one's going to test the lows. Doesn't have the volume, but it keeps coming. Doing an ABC structure on the way down, and it's getting pretty close to finish. 1991, 1867, so that's about $1.30 or so, $1.20, and that would put you about 18, which is right at these lows. So it looks like it's going to try to test the low, and then I would think it probably tries to bounce from there. Okay, I don't have much else to say. The test tomorrow, the big test, of course, is the Fed. Overseas markets, if I look at those, Asia looks like it's probably going to hold tonight. Maybe a little bounce out of Shanghai. If I look at Europe, Europe actually held the lows. Looks like it wants to bounce tomorrow. Our market's ambivalent. The only one showing us anything is a Russell, and that's slightly positive. So if I did anything tomorrow, I would be slightly positive. But you know, with the Fed, with the news flow out of Europe, you know, you don't have great trades here going into tomorrow. All right, that's all I see. I will catch you next time, and we'll see what the Fed wants to do with this and how these markets react to it. If that Fed comes out and really hardens the date, these markets are going to sell off. See you tomorrow. Good night.